A lot of nurses are unionizing. A lot of healthcare workers are unionizing. Undergraduate students, they're unionizing. A lot of the energy right now is with people under 30, and that's a humongous change.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So, being a New York Times labor reporter for as long as you were, we were, Adam and I were on a podcast a while back, maybe in the last week or two, and somebody asked us, what would we say to somebody 25 years ago? If somebody went to sleep 25 years ago, was in cryogenically frozen, and they just woke up and they were a union person, and you had to explain to them, what's happened in the last 25 years and what's the difference between now and 25 years ago. I thought about this afternoon. I know I didn't tell you that we'd be asking you this question, but I figured this is one that you'll be able to riff on pretty easily. I can't think of anybody else better to talk to this person who just woke up from a 25-year coma than Stephen Greenhouse. So what are you saying to this person?
You're very kind. So, the union movement in the United States, right now there's been a real resurgence in labor activity with, the strikes and organizing. 25 years ago, in comparison, things were much more quiet. Unions weren't as active. They weren't going on strike as much. There was much less organizing. There was in the mid-1990s an effort with the AFL-CIO, the nation's main labor federation, to try to increase organizing. Again, there was a little bit of a stir 25 years ago, but it really didn't amount to much. But that's not to say there wasn't something going on. I went down to New Orleans 25 years ago when there were some early efforts to try to unionize hotel workers. I went down to Birmingham when the Steelworkers Union, this is again 25, 30 years ago, when the Steelworkers Union was still pretty mighty, pretty powerful in Alabama. So I'm not saying that, there was nothing going on with unions, but not like today. So like someone who went to sleep 25 years ago would think, well, the union movement was pretty, I don't want to say moribund, but like relatively inert, not very active. And then say, wake up now and see, well, there was this humongous UAW strike this past summer, and they see workers organizing at Starbucks, not just in New York State and Washington State, but in Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia and Louisiana. And when they see it organizing at Trader Joe's, the Trader Joe's in Louisville just unionized, and there are various efforts to unionize Amazon. So, things are different. Another big difference, I should say, is that many more young people are interested in unions and fighting back and trying to get their fair share. And again, 25 years ago, I think if you ask the average American who's involved in unions, they'd probably say, people who are 55-year-olds. But the people who are pushing at, universities across the country and museums across the country to unionize. A lot of nurses are unionizing. A lot of healthcare workers are unionizing. I mean, we have undergraduate students, undergraduate cafeteria workers, undergraduate researchers at, for various professors, they're unionizing, So, it's, the union movement, a lot of the energy right now is with, people under 30, and that's a humongous change. From these are people who are 5 years old who maybe weren't even born 25 years ago, but that's another big difference in the labor movement.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Well, and you mentioned that there were reform efforts, 25, now maybe 30 years ago, back in the 90s. And that's actually something that I thought about too. When they said 25 years ago, I immediately thought of, I think they were called New Voices or in the AFL, and then also Ron Carey and the Teamsters. 25 years ago, this person would have just seen the death, basically, of, they went to sleep in 1999 or 2000. They would have seen basically the death of a nascent reform movement in U.S. labor, and all the activity right now. A lot of it has been generated by a reform movement, and so I'm wondering, what are the differences, if any, that you see between the reform movements in the 90s and the reform movements around today?
That's a great question. Just let's go back even further for a minute. So, very fast history lesson. Before the Great Depression in the 1930s, unions were very weak. During the Great Depression, there were lots of strikes. Under Franklin Roosevelt, a huge law was passed that gave the federal backing to unionization. And unions really got much stronger in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. And they were strong in the 60s and 70s. In the 1980s, the United States felt huge amounts of global competition from Japan, from Europe. Volkswagen started sending a lot of cars into the United States, foreign steel. So American industry felt much more competition, and inflation went under control with the Arab oil boycott. So there was a real effort by companies to reduce cost. Then they closed a lot of plants, and that's when things really turned. Start to go bad for unions. So in the 1990s, people said the union movement is really taking it on the chin. We got to try to reawaken it, reinvigorate it. So there was this new voices effort. We're tired of seeing unions and workers flat on their backs. We got to try to organize again. And there was someone ran to be the president of the AFL-CIO, the big labor federation, John Sweeney, and his vow was to reawaken, reinvigorate labor again. And he said, we all have to invest, all the 50, 60 unions in the AFL-CIO have to spend at least 20% of their budget on organizing so that labor would grow again. And so Sweeney really tried. It was a noble effort, but there was just a lot of inertia. And the efforts to organize then were much more top down, not right now they're much more bottom up generally, and that's a big difference. Another big difference is, again, the energy of young Americans is really so important right now to the labor movement. You see it at Starbucks, you see it at Amazon, you see when 3,000 graduate students organize at MIT, or over 1,000 graduate students at Duke in North Carolina. So there's a lot of youthful energy, and that's making a big difference. And 25 years ago, I don't know if the internet existed. I don't know if TikTok certainly didn't exist. Twitter. So another huge difference is that social media has become a very important tool in organizing, and it's really helped workers in many ways. One of the big unfairnesses in efforts to unionize, and I've written extensively about this, is if you want to unionize a factory or a call center or often a hospital, the employer will say, will totally bar, prohibit union organizers from setting foot on company property. There's a famous Supreme Court case where some union organizers put leaflets on the windshields of cars in the parking lot. And the company said, you can't do that, you can't do that. And the Supreme Court said, that's right. The company has the absolute right to prohibit union organizers from setting foot on company property, while at the same time, companies can, if I may use the word, propagandize their workers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've been in workplaces where companies show anti-union videos, nonstop in the break room and the lunchroom. I went to the biggest employer in the state of Pennsylvania, a hospital chain. On every worker's computer, there's an anti-union screensaver. So union organizers can't set foot in the parking lot or in the lunchroom, but companies have huge access. So that's why social media has made such a difference, because professional union organizers and rank and file workers, they have really ready access to their fellow workers. And as I said, things are much more bottom up. Like the Starbucks unionization efforts, the unionization efforts at colleges and there've been so many museums of unionized museum workers in New York, Chicago, Colorado, Boston, maybe not so much in the South, but Philadelphia. I mean, that, these are really bottom up. It's not like, oh, this union president says, oh, we're going to try to unionize that place or that. It's like workers are saying, we want to unionize. They go to the union and say, please help us. And sometimes they do it without much help from the union.
Right. Yeah, I think that tracks. And we asked similar questions to Barry Eidlin, and he had similar responses that the big difference between the reform efforts in the 90s and today was top down versus bottom up. Which is, like you said, not to say that in the 90s there weren't people working valiantly and commendably to try to fix the situation we were in, but it's just difficult to kind of make this stuff happen from the top if there's not the energy down there at the bottom.
And I've been remiss, I think, and women are playing much more of a leading role in organizing. Again, 25 years ago, not women were active in the labor movement. There weren't many female leaders in the labor movement, but women were making themselves heard. But now much, much more women are leading the efforts. They're speaking out. Women head some of the largest labor unions in the country. The three largest labor unions in the country are all headed by women right now. The National Education Association, the Service Employees Union, and the American Federation of Teachers. So women play a much bigger part. And look at the Starbucks campaign.
Right.
So many of the leaders of that are women, and some of them are just brilliant people. I mean, it's really impressive, and not just brilliant, but very brave as well.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.